We're back. This is going to be a NFL teams tier list, an NFL teams power rankings, both 2 and 1. This week we had a bunch of wild games. We had a bunch of close games. We had elite teams lose. Every week I say the same thing in the intro. We have crazy things happen week in and week out in the NFL. And today, it is time for us to piece everything from the past week together. Before week 13 gets here, we're going to get this tier list out. Last night was the Monday Night Football game. We had the Seattle Seahawks play the Washington football team. The Seahawks lost. Again. You can't make this up. They're 3-8 now. Anyways, we're not even going to get into this. I'm a Seahawks fan. We're not going to get into this. We're going to start with the tier list. And we're going to go ahead and jump right on into it. It would be much appreciated if you could please leave a like on the video. Please subscribe to the channel. You can leave comments down below. You know, anything you may change, anything you agree with, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know, and let's get right on into this booger, shall we? All right, we're going to start off with the worst team in the NFL this season. It is the only team without a win. We're going to throw Detroit at 32. I contemplated another team going at 32. It's just hard to argue for the Detroit Lions after they go 0-10-1. Of course, they had the draw against the Steelers. This week, they lost on Thanksgiving. Shocker. To the Chicago Bears. The Bears kicked the last-second field goal, won the football game. DeAndre Swift got injured. Things aren't good for Detroit. They're at 32. 31, we're going to throw the Houston Texans. A team that lost to the New York Jets this week. It's crazy, but Houston is worse than the Jets. The Jets with Zach Wilson, I must add. Things are tough for both Detroit and Houston. They're the clear bottom two teams. And I don't have anything to say other than that. I mean, they're awful. Next up on the list will be the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't know why I said it all optimistic. The Jaguars are 2-9. They have a couple wins this year. They're not good. Nothing is good about any of these teams really in this bottom tier. Just not their year. Maybe next year. Maybe as Trevor Lawrence can grow as an NFL quarterback, maybe they can start getting things going on the offensive side. You have weapons. You have guys like James Robinson, Trevor Lawrence. You have Laviska Shenault, who you do not utilize for some reason. He is very talented. I'm not the only one that sees it. Urban Meyer doesn't see it, I guess. And that is the summary of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next up will be the New York Jets. They got a win this week. Granted, it was against the Houston Texans. But the Jets, obviously, there's nothing to look forward to if you're a Jets fan for this season besides that draft pick. They need to start tanking losses. That's it. Next up is a big shocker. This is the most surprising team in this tier. Is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. Pete Carroll, I would argue his time in Seattle is done. After the season, I feel like Pete Carroll's gone, and hopefully Russ isn't gone. But if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm leaving the team. Not much going on offense. This offense is horrible. DK Metcalf had like one target by the third quarter of this football game. You know, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Russell Wilson, you would think they could make things work, but they cannot. They cannot. It's over for this team, at least for this season. Next up is going to be the Chicago Bears. This is a team that actually got a win this week, but it was against the 32 ranked team in my power rankings. And they were losing the majority of the game without DeAndre Swift on the opposing side. Now, Andy Dalton has looked better at quarterback than Justin Fields has this season. Obviously, I mean, you don't just rush rookies like Justin Fields in there when their team is as bad as they are. Matt Nagy is just not cutting it for Chicago fans, but they got the win this week. Next up, we might throw this team up a tier. We'll go the New York Giants. Yes, they're below the Eagles in my power rankings, even though they just defeated them. Because I mean, I feel like the Eagles are a better team, right? They really should have arguably won that game. Jalen Hurts made an incredible play, threw the ball to the end zone on the last play of the game, hits Jalen Reagor in the face mask right between the hands. He drops it in the end zone. The Eagles would have won by a point, but yeah, the Giants won the game. Shout out to the Giants. Saquon Barkley is back. They need to try to get him eased back into the offense. I don't know. There's not much for the New York Giants this season. Next up will be the Carolina Panthers. This is a team that started off hot, one of the last undefeated teams in the NFL, and then they just fell off a brick wall. They ended up benching Sam Darnold. He got injured. They had PJ Walker. Then they signed Cam Newton. Cam Newton, the first week with the team, they get a win. He looks pretty good while doing so. 2 weeks ago, he looked all right. They still lost, and then this week he looked awful. He looked horrible. He got benched for PJ Walker, and they did not win the game. So, Panthers, I'm sorry, you got to go all the way down here. Ahead of the Panthers are actually going to be the Atlanta Falcons. They got a much-needed win this week. Cordell Patterson was back, and he had a couple touchdowns, looked incredible. I mean, honestly, props to the Atlanta Falcons for what they were able to do with Cordell Patterson this season. If there's any bright spot about this season, it is how they handled Cordell Patterson to make him an elite playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. And I really do applaud them for that. It's hard. Kyle Pitts is getting locked down by cornerbacks because, of course, they lost Calvin Ridley. So opposing teams are treating Kyle Pitts as if he's the number one wide receiver on this team. And it's tough for him to get open against those smaller cornerbacks. But really, this team has some potential for next season. And they may end up, who knows? I mean, they may end up in the playoffs this year. That's how things are in the NFC right now. So interesting for the Atlanta Falcons. Ahead of the Falcons, we're going to throw the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team with some potential for sure. I think Jalen Hurts is a great quarterback. He has his on weeks, his off weeks. And I may be flamed for saying that I think Jalen Hurts is an amazing quarterback, but I do think the talent's there. I do think he will get better as he progresses in the NFL. And I think he's already making elite plays. This is a team that really should have won last week against the Giants, but they did not. And for that, they're in this almost there tier. And you may be wondering why I haven't talked about defense really at all this video. And I'm about to, because the Washington football team, they are working their way up this tier list. They are on a nice 3-game win streak, I believe. And their defense has been playing a lot better as of the past few weeks. They did lose Chase Young, of course, for the season, which is super unfortunate, but this is a team that's playing better defense as of late, and it's helping them stay in close competitive games and win these games. Like I said, I mean, they defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a few weeks back due to their methodical play on offense and then their defense just getting enough stops to, let the offense work on the field. So shout out to the Washington football team. Next up is another team that's on a nice win streak. A lot of that because of their defense. It is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins have been playing great football as of late. I mean, they're on a 4-game win streak. They started 1-7. They are now 5-7, working their way back from that bad record. And who knows? I mean, this is a team that could slip their way into a playoff spot at the end of the season, as crazy as that sounds. And I know the AFC is pretty loaded, but they're working their way back into that playoff picture. And they're right outside of that playoff hopeful tier. Both of these two teams are really, I would say all 4 of these teams, not so much these teams. They're almost there. They're right next to that playoff push, but not quite. Next up is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now the Steelers, we'll throw them in the playoff hopeful tier. I don't think this team makes the playoffs. I think they're trending this direction, while some of the teams below them are trending up. And one more week of what we see from Pittsburgh, and they're going to fall for sure into the almost there tier. Just offensively, they're not good at all. Big Ben is old. He's washed. Their defense, pretty good defense. It, kind of carries them through games, as bad as that may seem. Just not much from the Steelers. I'm losing hope in them very quickly. And above the Steelers, another team I am losing hope for. It is the New Orleans Saints. This is not going good for the Saints. They just got routed on Thanksgiving by Buffalo. Their offense is just really bad. The offense is just horrible. The defense is pretty good, but recently they haven't been. They've been getting a lot of points put up on them, and their defense has to play well or else they're not going to win games with this offense. Maybe it's time for a change at quarterback. Taysom Hill, maybe you get him going this week. You try to do what you can. I mean, ever since they lost Jameis, things just haven't looked great for the Saints, though. Next up will be the Cleveland Browns. This team looked bad. So did the team they played, and the Baltimore Ravens this week. Both teams looked bad in prime time. It was a defensive game, not much on offense. They did defensively play well against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Lamar threw 4 interceptions, but the Browns offense just didn't play good. They didn't play good. Nick Chubb didn't do much. The way they're utilizing their running backs is so strange. There's potential for this team, but they're just such a wishy-washy 500 team this season, so far at least. I mean, not much else to say. Next up is the Minnesota Vikings. Another tough loss for the Minnesota Vikings. This team loses so many close games. It's sad, man. They played the San Francisco 49ers. Ended up losing a close competitive game. It was a great game to watch, honestly. Both teams trending upwards, in my opinion. And that was a huge game for the NFC playoffs. The broadcasters kept calling it a non-official playoff game. I agree. It was a huge game in the trajectory of the NFC playoff rankings. Vikings fell short. They're a great team. They did just lose Dalvin Cook for at least this week. Probably 1 to 2 weeks at least. It was a dislocated shoulder, I believe. Alexander Mattison, though, great handcuff running back. So they'll have to rely on Madison to carry that backfield. Next up, another inconsistent team, the Los Angeles Chargers. This team's super inconsistent. They have a lot of talent. They're kind of what I call a boom-bust fantasy team, but in real life, they're a boom-bust team. And it reflects. I mean, Justin Herbert's a boom-bust quarterback. He has his great games. He has his not-so-great games. They got a solid defense. They have a solid team, really. They just can't put together win streaks. It's tough for this team right now. It seems like they win one, lose one. But ultimately, they are playoff hopefuls for sure. Next up is actually the Denver Broncos. I used to always put them right next to the Carolina Panthers, but they've kind of separated from that. You know, they have great weeks. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, that two-headed monster in the backfield, has been doing work. They did lose Teddy Bridgewater this past week, so we'll have to see how that plays out for them. But the Denver Broncos are a solid team. I do think that they, have some potential, maybe for a playoff push. Maybe they're a little high for my liking, but they have the decent record, and I think they go right around this middle area right here. Next up is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team that defeated the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving in a great game. A lot of penalties in that game. I believe there were 28 flags thrown in that game. It was a close game. The Cowboys clawed back, but in the end, the penalties cost them. The Raiders make a kick to win the game in overtime, and they got the dub. They did what they had to do. Derek Carr looked good. This is a team that's gone through... The Raiders have gone through so much this season, so it's good to see them performing in big-time games like this. Next up is a team that is trending up, up, and up. It is the San Francisco 49ers. This team has been winning football games, looking good while doing it. Props to the San Francisco 49ers. They have all their offensive weapons back. Well, until this week, it looks like Deebo Samuel came out of that game a little banged up. He might miss a little bit of time. We'll have to see. Elijah Mitchell has been getting so many carries a game, and they're finding their identity as a running football team with still elite passing options to go to. Next up, a team that lost this week to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It is the Indianapolis Colts. I like this team. They have, I know the MVP award is a quarterback award, but as of right now, going into week 13, I believe Jonathan Taylor is the MVP of the NFL. He's just so valuable. He stormed them down the field pretty much by himself towards the end of the game against the Buccaneers to score a touchdown to tie the game. Of course, the defense couldn't hold through. They had a great first half, but Tom Brady and the Buccaneers with Leonard Fournette in that rushing game, even Ronald Jones, found their way down the field and ended up winning the game. It was a great game, close game. The Colts are a great football team, regardless of what their 500 record says. This is a team that I think will for sure make the playoffs, and they'll win some more football games this season. I promise you that. Next up, a team that has fallen. They have fallen, folks. It is the Los Angeles Rams, and actually we're going to move the Colts right here, because we like having 6 in this tier and then 6 in the tier above. So we'll throw the Colts right here with the Rams. But yeah, the Los Angeles Rams on a 3-game losing streak. They have fallen from way up in the top 3 to the tier below, S tier. It's just tough. Matthew Stafford isn't healthy. They brought in some new weapons on both sides of the football, but they just had a tough run. I mean, they did lose to the Green Bay Packers, who are a great team, so not too much shame, but dude, you got to get a win if you're them, especially in the NFC. When things are looking tough at the top of your division, with the Cardinals, and then of course you have teams also in your division, or the team right here, the San Francisco 49ers, who are trending upwards. You got to get some wins if you're the Rams. Ahead of the Rams, you have the Dallas Cowboys. This team was looking really good last week, and then of course they ran into the Las Vegas Raiders. A tough loss on Thanksgiving. It was a good game. It was a close game. This upcoming week, though, they're not going to have their coach, Mike McCarthy. They might not have some players due to COVID-19, and Zeke is not healthy. Keep an eye on this Cowboys team this week. You might want to fade them. You might want to. You really shouldn't, though. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals. Man, they routed the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was not even close from the get-go. They got off to a huge lead early on. Joe Mixon is really getting the rock a lot. They're really starting to run the ball. And this is another team I feel like is finding their identity on offense. You have the weapons to throw to, such as Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. You have the quarterback, Joe Burrow. You have the running back, Joe Mixon. This offense is great, and with decent defense, this team can go a long ways. Next up is the Tennessee Titans. They also lost this week. Another team that lost this week. Now, this team has some struggles without their offensive weapons. Without Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I mean, this team is not the same. They're not the same at all. They've been playing better defense as of late, but I'm iffy on the rest of the season for this team, and I was very high on them before they lost A.J. Brown. Even without Derrick Henry, I was high on them because their running backs now are still putting up good numbers, good yardage. I just don't know if they can come together as a complete team. The Patriots defeated them, of course, this week. Not a horrible loss, but it's gonna be tough sledding for the Tennessee Titans. All right, and next up, we are going to throw the Buffalo Bills. Yes, they fell down a tier into the playoff run tier. Now, they did get a big win this week against the New Orleans Saints. It was a bounce back game. They defeated them pretty handily. It's one of those things. I mean, it's one of those things. The Bills, they're a great team. They have a great offense. They have a great defense. They're going to be just fine. Right now, though, they're in a wild card slot, and they might. I think going into this week, they were the 7th seed in the AFC. Something to look at. They probably rose up. They rose up now. They're probably the 5 seed, but the Buffalo Bills got a nice bounce back win this week. Next up is the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that has worked their way back up. They've been looking more like the Kansas City Chiefs as of late, playing good football. On defense, they're playing pretty good, actually. pretty good defense for the Chiefs the past month or so. And on offense, they're still the Chiefs. I mean, we've seen it. Patrick Mahomes gets to dealing. They got Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. Next up will be the Baltimore Ravens. It hasn't been pretty for the Ravens, but they're finding ways to win games. I can't fault them. They find ways to win these games, even when they really shouldn't. They had an awful performance this week against the Browns. They won. Last week, they won with their backup quarterback, Tyler Huntley. But they're pulling these games out. No matter how it looks, they're still winning. They're the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. And we got to give them credit. Next up, a team that has risen so much. It is the New England Patriots. I have high hopes for this team. I said it from early in the year. Rookie quarterback with Bill Belichick, this team will get better as the year goes. And they have. Their defense is, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL. This offense is turning out to put up a lot of points. Right now, they look unstoppable. And the Patriots are a team to look out for in the Super Bowl, I'm telling you right now. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They defeated a good Colts team. It was a close game. The Colts led for the majority of the game, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers found a way to win the game. They're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending champs. Right now I have them at number 3, and I don't picture them falling too far for the rest of the season. They may lose a few games, but I don't see them really getting below this tier anymore. I think they're kind of coming together towards the end of the season. Now, the number 2 team on my tier list is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. This team has not been healthy for the past month, but they're winning football games, man. James Conner's been stepping up ever since the injury to Chase Edmonds. Kyler Murray's been out. Even with wishy-washy quarterback play, they're still winning. DeAndre Hopkins has been out. AJ Green's been out. But they're winning football games, baby. And they're atop of the best division in the NFL, in my opinion. So, shout out to the Cardinals, but there's only one team that I can throw above them. It is the Green Bay Packers. A team that just routed the Los Angeles Rams. Okay. Oh, there they go. The Packers. I'm a longtime Detroit Lions fan, so it's hard for me to do this, but they're rightfully number 1. I think that as of right now, they have the momentum. Under Matt LaFleur, they've had a tremendous record throughout the seasons he's coached. And I think this year they make it to the NFC Championship game and lose. That's not a hot take, of course, because this happens all the time, but shout out to the Green Bay Packers. They're number 1 in my tier list / power rankings. And yeah, I say this every week, but next week I guarantee there's going to be quite a few changes in this tier list. It's like every single week things happen at the top of the NFL, things happen at the bottom of the NFL, and it just jumbles everything up. So, I've been really enjoying this NFL season. Got some great teams, got some not so great teams, got some upsets. We got it all, man. We're blessed to have this league around, and I'm looking forward to week 13. Lots of good matchups. Interested to see how it plays out, not just for real NFL, but also for fantasy football. And yeah, that'll pretty much wrap up this tier list. If you enjoyed, please leave a like on the video, comment, subscribe, all those good things. I really do appreciate everyone that watches this. And until next time, deuces.